Hey Tyler, we're back. It's been
All
a minute.
right. Welcome to dSIPRouter Weekly, everybody. Show where we talk about all
Yes,
things
we
telephony and hacking on servers.
there it is. So we had a little hiatus because we were both at ClueCon.
hmm
Um, Definitely was an experience. Anything you wanted to highlight from ClueCon, or anything in particular you found interesting around ClueCon? Because I know we didn't record that week, so I know the people want to know what anything
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah, everything's exciting. We talked a lot about AI there. We did some dangerous demos, messed around with a lot of the signal wire technology. It's very interesting seeing some of the problems that people are trying to solve with the AI resources and the LLMs, and what tasks are really well suited to that. I think Brian gave a really cool demo where they were doing live translations uh, on the phone using one of the AI APIs, and that was pretty neat. Yeah.
So my favorite talk was probably the VCon talk. So for those who don't understand what those are, and I don't understand totally completely, but to me that was a talk around um like privacy and ownership of your voice, basically. So as we all do when we call into a call center, we hear this call is going to be recorded for quality
hmm
assurance. Um, but imagine being able to go to a company, very much like you're able to go to Facebook today and say, "Give me all my data." But being able to go to a company and say, "Hey, give me all of the recordings where my voice is on it." So that's part of it. But the other part about it is also being able to, um, you know, give people the permission to use your voice, which to me brings into the possibility of monetizing your voice, monetizing the knowledge you have. So I thought that was cool because there's a lot of policy going around that. So that definitely opened up my eyes to just that whole segment of 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 policy that I wasn't thinking about.
Yeah, I think a lot of
Um,
people are worried about that too, and it's some of the laws that are going to get hashed out, as we go. How can you say, "Hey, I don't want to be recorded," and that actually be enforced by
yeah.
the carriers and by legislation? So it's a lot of interesting uh, side topics there as well.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to get like, what did I say in these recordings? So like, give me all of my
Mhm.
recordings with my voice on it, so I can listen to myself. So I think that's cool. But today, I know we wanted to do some code along. Tyler, what were you thinking about doing? And maybe we can go ahead and code along.
Yeah, so today's going to be a special stream. We're doing a little code along. We're going to walk through an engineering problem that probably everybody's faced. So this is going to be a little bit more technical talk today. Hope you guys like it. We'll kind of just jump right into um, data integrity. So that's the issue I was going to cover. Did you have anything else you were going to cover after that?
No, I think that's about it. I mean, I think this normal housekeeping stuff is just like, if you have things that you want us to look at or review or talk through, the best thing to do is to join our Slack channel. A link to our Slack channel will be in the notes below this particular recording. If you're on this recording, I'll drop it in the chat right now, so you will have it. But that's probably the biggest thing I just wanted to do. Just a simple kind of housekeeping. So the floor is all yours, buddy.
All right, I appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we will start talking through this problem. So we'll leave it on the router, on the UI for now. So one of the issues that we all face when we are creating an application, right, is data integrity. So how do I make sure that not just things on the front end are uh, still the same on the back end, but when that gets loaded up into other systems, how can we make sure that those same items are still intact. We ran into this problem a few times building the dSIPRouter application as well. So on the front end, you're going to have this little UI. This is all client-side stuff, and it's going to talk to an API, some translation layer. It's going to go talk to the database, right? So typically, when we're solving these problems just between the front end and the back end, you can have checks in your database. So if I'm in carrier groups, so there's some tables on the back end that are going to be storing this, right? If we go over to our models, so carrier groups, if I can remember what we called them. This is the dangerous part of the gateway. So we have a model here, right? And this is the abstraction layer, is how we model it and then map that to the table. If we actually go to the table, typically that's where we're going to, if we were solving this problem traditionally, that's how we would solve the problem. Put checks in at the database level. So it's going to be in the DML, it's going to be in your schema. We can actually bring that up. Let's go ahead, over to this table. Gateways. So this is a traditional way of doing it. It's either with triggers or with checks on your columns. So this could, you're going to have really simple data types when you're actually storing this, right, in your schema. But to make sure that, per se, an address is actually a host name or a valid host name, or it's a valid IP address, you have to put extra logic in there. And a lot of the times, that's fine if you're just trying to support one specific database and one specific way of accessing it. But this gets very, very tedious if you're trying to be database agnostic, right? So I had to create this for MySQL. I have to create this for Postgres. I have to create all these different checks in each one of the databases I want to support. They're going to have different SQL syntaxes, and you're going to have to update those as your logic changes. So it starts compounding, it starts to be more tedious. And then some of the things that the next part of that is your application backend, way it talks to these models. You may have to do those same checks over here, somewhere else in your code. So if you're passing this data from the backend somewhere else, or you're pulling it in, you may have to do these integrity checks somewhere else along the way. And I was always thinking to myself, this is kind of silly that we have to do the same logic in two different places. We have to create it in our Python code. We have to put it into the database layer. And basically, what I came up with as a better solution was basically taking this logic and putting it into our ORM layer instead. So think about it this way: if you could take your integrity checks from schema, and instead of having to do all these triggers and database specific checks, you can pull that into your ORM and backend before it ever gets to the database, then you're kind of solving that same issue. And that's one of the things I looked at. This is on a different branch of the same project, but we did some cool things over here where I basically mapped those into the ORM. Now, those of you not familiar with SQL Alchemy and the Python APIs for all of this, it's basically just an ORM abstraction over that base, right? Takes your models and it kind of maps it to the database. It makes it more database agnostic. Pretty cool, right? So if we can map that into our ORM on an event, so it tries to execute, let's say, an insert. We do a little bit of checking, and then we basically map that into our models using like one of these hooks. For example, we'll go ahead and look at domains. So I have a really simple one there. if I can map that same logic where I'm doing extra checks and data integrity validation into my ORM level, now I don't have to reproduce that code anymore. And now it's also database agnostic, which is a great feature. That's something that we wanted to work forward to, is PostgreSQL support and adding other databases into the support for this platform. So this is pretty huge. And now you haven't seen this yet, Max, but this is something that I have on the other fork, on my fork of the project right now. So
Very
basically,
cool.
you just map in these. Well, you bring in the classes that implement those APIs, and you just hook it in. So right here, on any insert, before it even gets to the database, the ORM is going to check, hey, this domain empty. And this could be something much more complex, a much more complex check, especially one that you don't want to rewrite in your schema or in your database specific language. I'll give a good example of that. If we go over to a little networking utility over here, we have a lot of different integrity checks and network related validations here, right? So if I go down, we're gonna scroll down a lot. Parsing SIP URIs, if you have a bunch of regexes in there, or maybe you want to validate, we go further down. Validate a sitter. I don't think anybody wants to be implementing this, excuse me, in the SQL trigger. They can, but you're gonna have to implement that over and over. And maybe you need to do this check, excuse me, somewhere else in your backend code, right? So it's a lot easier if I just can take this and map it into my models. Map it into my model. So this could be validate FQDN, and a lot more complicated logic. That's kind of the basics of how we were trying to solve that problem. One other piece of that is, after you're validating the front end and back end and making sure that that matches the database, as long as those checks are all good, between the front end and the back end, you're not going to have any issues. But you may have another application, for instance, Camilio, that is using some of that data as well. So for us, that's another system application that's relying on that data. And one of the ways we validate that is on startup, if any of the data that it pulls in is invalid, we don't let the GUI start up. We're kind of looking into like if there's a way we can do a fallback mode there, but we want to make sure that that state that we're showing you in the UI matches the backend, matches what is actually loaded in on the switch, because you don't want to be routing on data that's bad or thinking based on your UI that, oh, this is what the state is, when the state is actually mismatched. So what I did want to do, if Matt, do you have any questions, by the way? I know you did, this is the first time you're kind of seeing this. It's a new concept
No, I think
here as well.
yeah, it's cool. So yeah, no, so basically the hook before update and hook before delete basically provides the behavior functions underscore before insert and underscore before update underscore before delete. Is that what they do basically?
Yep.
As
So
that
those
behavior? Okay.
are
Yeah.
hooked in, and we can see if we go to these classes, it's saying, hey, you have to have this interface for insert.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
That way we know that we're implementing that API.
Got you. Okay, cool. No, I like it. I like it. I think this is going to be helpful because you're right. We are like, I always have to cringe when I have to like go into, one of the triggers or one of the stored procedures and do a lot of this, stuff around validation. So having it here, this makes more sense. And as you stated, it makes it more agnostic to different data stores. So this is good.
Yeah. And as we bring on more people and more people start contributing,
Yeah.
these are pain points. You know, you're not going to have everybody that is
Expert on
aware.
SQL.
Yeah, experts on experts on your very complicated regex and SQL or very complicated checks there. You know, and then have they worked with all those systems? So as you're trying to maintain a code base, if you can kind of wrap those things into like one source of truth or put them in less places that are redundant, it's very, very helpful. As we've seen, you know, trying to migrate pieces of the or refactor pieces of code, it gets very, very tedious and things start getting decompartmentalized and you lose track of where the different pieces of code are. So all of this is kind of an effort to
make things simpler. I love it.
Easier.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know. I like it. No, keep going for sure. Well, whatever else you have, that'd be great. It's good.
Yeah, so I'll just show really quickly, making sure that this check works. So, you know, this is just checking if the domain is, if it's an empty string, you know, we're saying, hey, you know, that's not valid. We don't want that, right? So let's go ahead, got the test instance up here. Let's go ahead and try to add a domain that's empty. So empty domain, pass through, give it any PBX. Look at that. Domain cannot be an empty string.
Love it. Love it.
So let's kind of take this to a logical conclusion. Let's check this domain. Let's do something a little bit more complicated, right? If we take this and say, tell that domain, and this could be a much more complicated check, but let's just do something a little bit more practical. If domain, let's say if it does not, domain that contains a dot, so let's just say that we're checking to make sure it's an FQDN, right? It's got to have at least one dot. Oh, yeah, not in dot in. Here's the dangerous part of the demo. Then we can do that same check on our updates. And we're not going to do anything with here. So this is actually just in my IDE. So I'm going to take these same changes and just drop it to the terminal.
Oh, I got you. Got you.
So the same changes that we just demoed, I'm just putting them in on the test system, which is remote right now.
Yep.
All right, and then let's restart the GUI here. All right. It's going to take a second to start up. Okay, we're back in. So let's say we have this current domain right here. We're gonna update it and see if our integrity check now works. So let's just say test, not a valid FQDN. Right, update here, we get a server issue. That's what we wanted. We wanted that database integrity check to fail. So that's basically it. Now we know that that integrity check works, and we don't have to have any crazy triggers or crazy checks in our database logic.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think this is great. I think this is a great, you know, enhancement to dSIPRouter, because I think, you know, we're sometimes focused on the shiny new objects. We kind of forget about all the internals and the mechanisms that we need in order to run the project successfully and be able to add new features without issues. So this is definitely one of those features that that we'll definitely have to recommend to people if they're contributing or our development team is working on this. They should definitely be using this approach to make sure things are propagated back up in a clean fashion whenever there's a particular issue with somebody entering some information or things of that nature. So that's dope. This is good.
Yeah. And that's our little code along for today, looking at data integrity issues and how you can implement some of this logic in your ORM. This is something that you'll see across. If you're a developer or if you're on the engineering team, you'll see data integrity issues all over the place. So this is something that could definitely be useful in your own project. I hope that was interesting and like a little peek behind the curtain for some of the people that are less technical as well.
No, I think this is good. I think sometimes, you got to, it's good in some cases to go behind the curtain for people to kind of see all the work that we're putting into the project. So, and they learned a little bit about how we're doing, form validation, for lack of better words, right? So I think this was something useful. And I think we talked a little bit about this as well, is that the more people that understand the code base and understand how it works, I think we'll start seeing, an increased number of people that want to contribute. It's just there's a lot of code there now. And I think people are like, oh my God, how do I kind of, work with that? But I think as we do these sessions and we talk about different aspects of the project, I think this is definitely a learning portion of it for anybody to be able to learn what's going on.
Yeah.
Couple other things.
I actually want to talk about that really quick before you keep.
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Any project that is 5 or more years old, you're going to have a big code base, right? And you're going to have technical debt. That's just a fact of life, right? So how to best manage that technical debt, when to refactor, all these are things that you're going to have to think about as a team, right? And if you can implement things that make that transition easier, or later down the line, you can bring people up to speed quicker, things like these data integrity checks, where it's an object that you slap on there, and now you have another ORM. Now you have something that's database agnostic that they don't have to worry about. I think that's going to be very valuable for a lot of people.
I agree. Yeah. And for us in particular, it's going to make our code base a lot easier to maintain. So I'm super happy and excited for that. So I know that, we have a lot going on in the project. What are you most excited about that you're working on right now? Maybe what you just showed may have been what you're excited about, but if not, is there something else that you're excited about?
Yeah, we're always working on something. Lately, it's been some LDAP improvements. We've also been working through some SBC translations. So you guys will be seeing in the near future some improvements to signal handling there, specifically between some weirder edge case design UACs and dialogue handling. Yeah, I think for a lot of people that are not aware, when you're doing translations for a lot of different UACs, they like to see exactly what they sent you come back, right? And if you're doing these translations, the replies coming back are going to be different, right? Like if you're translating it to, you're failing over between 5 different carriers, or you're adding identity headers, if you're making changes, then the UAC is not going to see that coming back. You'll see a lot of older UACs that will have issues with that. So trying to handle all of that and acting more like an SBC as we progress is kind of the goal there. Hiding all of those different pieces from each leg of the call.
That's good. For me, it's really is just fixing something that was kind of it's a thing that was bothering me. Some UI fixes for me. It's just like when the page, like right now, the dashboard, when you actually resizes it, like the main page, like sometimes the boxes don't equally fit. So I wanted to fix that. So I fixed that. And then I want to fix, like, again, something that bothers me right now is you click on a link in our UI, it it will well, two things. One is that there's a drop down, and then you can click another
Mhm.
item. And once you click the other item, the menu doesn't keep the context. The left menu doesn't keep context where you are. So I want to fix that, and then I want to fix, like, sometimes I have like certain pages of dSIPRouter bookmarked, but if you click on it, it routes you back to the home page, and it doesn't route you once you log in, it doesn't route you back to that page. So I want to, like, fix a couple of those
Mm.
things that drives me nuts, especially
Yeah.
when I'm working on something. So that's those are the things I'm working on. And then the last thing is, and I haven't got there yet. It's just like more of a global whitelist, because a lot of times people want to whitelist a large set of carriers, or maybe this is a
Mhm.
system. And there's ways to doing it now, right? You can just put the IP address in the carrier group or endpoint group in order to do it, but this sometimes it doesn't, because the problem with putting it in a carrier group is that then if there's a failure or something like that, it will actually try and route traffic to that IP. So it's better just to have another list, I think, that allows you to have all of the IPs whitelisted for a particular country, geolocation, things of that nature. So just want to be able to
Supporting
make it
subnet.
easier. Yep, supporting subnets. Yes,
Yeah.
when obviously Camilio supports that. Just in our GUI, we don't support that right now. So I'm fixing those things so that we can just support those use cases, especially in, like, other countries. Other countries still, they're giving out IP addresses to customers, and they're putting it on a certain subnet. Um, that type of stuff. So just want to be able to be more universal to support to users and customers around the world. So
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the things I did for another platform that we created that was for a client recently had separate authentication from the entities were separate from the routes. So I'm not sure if that's something that we're going to do with dSIPRouter as well, but it sounds like that's pretty similar to what you're thinking about implementing.
yeah, for sure. This is definitely just trying to get that just figured out and get it pushed out, because I think it's something that I think people will see value for it. So but anyway, those are the things that I'm working on currently. So I try to keep these weeklies pretty short. We're coming up on 30 minutes. So um anything else that we wanted to talk about maybe next week? What do we want to anything I haven't thought about. Maybe I'll show a little bit of what I'm working on, like uh I don't know. There's so many different things we can work on and show, but I guess maybe this will put that out to the people who are listening to this. If you see something that you want us to talk about on dSIPRouter Weekly, just jump in our Slack. Again, the address to or the link to our Slack channel will be in the notes for this video. So check it out below, and then we will figure out what you want to talk about, and we'll come up with some topics and make it interactive. So until next week, I guess we are out of here, and we will catch y'all later.
Before you move on to, if you guys like this format, like getting deeper into the technical side, or if you want things that are less technical and more high level, how you do regular things to just set up routes or like do your job better, let us know in the comments what kind of format you guys are looking for.
Yep, that's great. That's a
Cool.
great comment. All right, y'all. Take care.
Later.